breaking the cycle was something that I had to do. I did do. I did it through like gritted teeth, and I did it almost like being forced to do things.
So, Charlie, thank you so much for joining the Hurt to Healing podcast. It's a joy seeing you here today.
It's my pleasure to be here.
So we're going to talk about your BDD and your time sort of spent in recovery and with it. And I'd love to start by asking if you remember when you first started to feel insecure about your appearance.
I mean, I think I speak for everyone that as we grow up, there's always this awkward time in your life when obviously you're going from being a youngster through your adolescence into then adulthood, where things aren't great. You're trying to find yourself, your body's doing what it needs to do, and you can either be really lucky and be one of those good-looking kids at school, I say, or you can be someone like myself that used to be a little bit out of proportion, to the point where I used to get called monkey. I used to literally be called monk. And it was because I had a very round face, big ears, and quite a round nose. And I was out of proportion and I didn't look the best. I had no shape. I wasn't an athletic boy at school. I kept myself to myself. And I used to think I was quite ugly. But it didn't really bother me, to be honest, because I used to just do school, get home, forget school. That was my vibe because it just wasn't my place. But it did used to play on me sometimes that I wasn't one of the good-looking / popular kids, which definitely must have been a seed planted, but I didn't realize at the time. And then as I progressed into sort of late adolescence, going to college, finding myself a little bit being inspired by the things that I used to like, which was the pop music at the time. It was like NSYNC, Justin Timberlake.
Yeah, I remember S Club 7.
Yeah, the guys in that. Blue were huge.
Boyzone.
And they used to have like their baggy jeans on and like a little bit of a quiff in the hairstyle. And I used to start experimenting a little bit with my look and start feeling myself a little bit more. And I felt that I was coming into my own, which was great. But never overly confident. But I went along with it. I understood that my time would probably come, that I would really feel confident. That's what I hoped. And then when I embarked on my early 20s, I had my own business. And that literally threw me into 7 days a week, zero interest in my appearance, zero interest in how I looked, because the business was my focus. And so I didn't take much notice. But I realized that some people would say, oh, you're a really nice looking guy. You're a handsome boy, Charlie. And I'd be like, oh, thank you. You know, I wasn't dating. I wasn't in relationships. So I wasn't hanging out with friends. I literally just worked, went home, worked, went home. But it was when Towie came, The Only Way Is Essex, which obviously was the reality show of the moment 10 years ago, which was about the beautiful people of Essex and their fantastic lifestyles, that Essex started becoming quite known for its image. And then when I got the opportunity to go on the show, which was obviously so random and so alien to anything that I was and what my life was all about, the first thing that comes to mind is, firstly, am I good looking enough for this show that's portraying the good looking people of Essex? And that's when I started really questioning myself. And when the producers of the show were interested in me, there started a bit of a pressure, or I'm going to be getting this opportunity, it seems, and I need to make sure that I'm like the other guys on the show. And at the time, it was Mark Wright, Mario, Joey Essex, all really handsome guys, the hair, the bodies, the tan, the teeth. And I felt a million miles away from that. So the seed was then planted, up your game.
Okay, so it went in waves really. So it kind of seems that there was quite an early onset of it, and then there was sort of a slight about when you were working and your focus was sort of elsewhere, and then it sort of was reignited by Towie and obviously took on a life of its own.
That's it.
And yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, when did you realize, do you think that it was a problem? Was that during your time spent sort of filming in Towie, or was that earlier?
Yeah, it's a good question. I've spent a lot of time reflecting recently and trying to understand where it went wrong to an extent, or where there could have been triggers that I didn't realize. And it does stem back to school, which really was a bad time for me. And I've spoke about this before. I spoke in Parliament earlier this year, and one of the biggest things I said to the health committee was, we need to get into schools
Mm.
because bullying damages people far more than you realize at the time. And unfortunately, I had a lot of bullying come my way for whatever reason, but it definitely made me very sensitive and a shell of the person that I probably could have been, even as I sit here today. It zapped something from me for sure. Um, and so I think that's why I quite liked the idea of always just disappearing home or being in my bubble of work and not really putting myself through any undue pressure when it came to dating, socializing, or trying to be anything like with an image
Mm.
or a physique or whatever. But I trust that when the Only Way Is Essex came my way, it was definitely a time in my life where I was like, no, I need to address some things and I want to go and see what the world's about and I want to get this opportunity that could be incredible for me. But it did bring back some of those childhood triggers, which was going back into an environment which was very competitive. Everyone was fighting for the popularity. Everyone wanted to have the storylines on the show. Everyone wanted the followers. At the time, Twitter was blowing up. And then everyone wanted the endorsements, the opportunity outside the show. And then if that person got it and you didn't get it, there started this insecurity, which it became a theme
Mm.
from there. So I don't want to blame the show as such,
Mm.
but it definitely took me back into an environment which was quite tricky to handle,
Mm.
especially when you've just gone from being a very regular person to being on one of the, at the time, the biggest reality TV show that everyone was talking about.
Mm.
You're juggling a lot, and that was a lot on my mental health without me realizing.
Yeah, I mean, I think from what you're saying, it sounds like you had quite early, sort of early onset trauma from that bullying, and obviously ignited something inside you. And there was obviously a lot of insecurity around your appearance. And maybe I'm overstepping the mark, as you know, I mean, it sounds like when you were working, that sort of became a bit of an addiction in itself almost, and it sort of slightly distracted you from, and you were able to numb yourself through that and kind of satisfy yourself through the workaholism maybe, which sort of made the BDD slightly like less active. And then as soon as you sort of present yourself to the world and say, here I am, it comes flooding back. It's interesting that with mental health, because I think I've definitely experienced that too. You can kind of go into that mode of just existing and kind of not really living a life. And you can kind of think you have it under control because you're almost not aware of how bad it is, because you don't really have to sort of face reality. And then as soon as you do and you present yourself to other people and you're in social situations, you suddenly realize like, actually shit, this is really a lot bigger than I thought it was.
Yeah, you're spot on with what you say. And this is why I think it's been quite tricky because I'm a very contradictory person, if you like, from the outside, because I will say one thing and I'll do the other, and I'm antisocial, or I'm not comfortable in groups, or I don't like attention. But then I love the attention when I'm feeling it and when I want to get it, and I love being social when I want to be, and I can be really confident when I choose to be, or if something's just clicked that day. And I think I've always been a little bit difficult to read because, especially with the social media day that we live in and edited reality TV shows, people were getting all different versions of me. And I definitely was trying to fit into all types and manners of person that I could be. And that in itself was quite tricky. But 100%, the trauma side of things was already there. And the obsessiveness was definitely already there, and it then just became more heightened as the years went on.
Mm. So when did you go and seek help, and when were you diagnosed with BDD, body dysmorphic disorder?
So there was still quite a way to get to that, and it it definitely it came in waves because when career stuff was going well, I was I was feeling quite self assured, and I thought, I was getting castings, I was busy, I was making money, I had the opportunity to work for Men's Health magazine and do a shoot with them, which was a game changer for me in the sense of understanding what exercise and fitness can do for you. Being given that opportunity to be in one of the biggest fitness magazines going, being given everything to make you transform in the best way, best trainers, nutrition, supplements, you name it, we had it. Paid to do an amazing opportunity, really. It was like the stuff that dreams were made of. But in my own private life, I was still struggling with my sexuality, which was a whole nother thing that I had to be figuring out. And at the time, I kept thinking I was asexual. I just didn't have the feelings for anyone, or going back to earlier years, I thought, no, I've just never really been into anyone. So I'm not this, I'm not that. I don't believe in labels. Don't really know where to put myself. But in the meantime, I would just keep going. That was it. But with the BDD and where that started coming into play wasn't until later down the line, when I had solidified myself, if you like, as a fitness coach, transformed my body, got known for a certain thing, and then the fun of that wore off because it became a pressure. And this is one thing that I've realized in this reflection that I've been doing recently, is that when something stops being enjoyable for me, or something stops being an organic experience that was a release, that was fun, that has a pressure on it, whether it's you've got to deliver this content because you've got to keep your social media up to keep people engaged. That in itself is a pressure for me, because I don't really like living my life like that. I always lived by my life goes on outside of social media. And then the social media would just be a reflection of what I'm doing in my real life. But when the social media starts becoming your real life and you're obsessing about how you're looking, what the other person's doing, it goes back into this cycle again, back to the TOWIE days, back to the school days. Here we go again. I'm looking at who's doing really well right now. What am I missing? What am I being told I'm missing? You should see this person's profile, see what they're doing, do that. And you can get like totally overwhelmed with it all. And it goes back to that comparison angle, which is a dangerous one for me, because it brings back those feelings of younger life when I was like, I just don't feel good enough. I don't feel accepted. I'm different. This is hard work. And it's hard. It's even harder work putting on the act.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that comes up time and time again, I think, with people who are like us and who suffer from mental health issues. It is that as a child, you're there thinking, I don't fit in. The world is this big, dark place. My friends, like, who are they? Do they like me? Do they accept me? And I was having a conversation the other day with a group of friends about children. And they were all saying, yeah, it's amazing looking at children. They're so sweet and innocent and present. And I just thought, you know what, I was in such a dark place, even as a young kid. I remember having all these sort of feelings and thoughts. And like you said, they really get embedded so early on. And if you don't address them, they just carry on throughout your adult life. And it's really, really hard especially with what you were doing. I think when you're so in the public eye and you have everyone sort of watching you, and there's that, as you said, that sort of constant comparison narrative going on in your head. And I can't imagine what it must have been like doing TOWIE and having that sort of constant public glare and the constant pressure. But I want to go back to something that you said, which I think is really interesting, which is when you take the enjoyment out of something and it becomes more ritualized, it suddenly actually, you start to question it. And I think in recovery, you start to realize that actually those things don't serve you, because when you're in the midst of, for me, it would be a compulsive episode, right? So I know that as soon as my routine gets really locked in and really entrenched, which it very often does, it's really, really hard to change that. So how did you start to implement that sort of change in your life and get some more enjoyment out of it, rather than feeling shackled to something else?
I think pre to me coming out and identifying as a gay male, obviously the more compulsive or the obsessive side of things was definitely a way of me hiding from the world, hiding from myself, and busying myself in a way which meant there was always an excuse not to address other things. I was crazy about gardening, and this makes me laugh, but I was obsessed with the lawn and making the lines in the lawn,
Yeah.
to the point where we had a house in Spain, and my mum and stepdad used to go over there for the whole summer, and I would go back and forth. But it got to the point where I wouldn't even go to Spain because I was so worried about the grass losing its definition. And that's when I knew that I definitely was starting to, there was bad habits there. And I had to try and curb it a little bit or try and find a way around it. And so I would, within my own self, and I give myself credit for that, make sure I do go away. I would try and break the cycle when something was starting to become, like, again, not enjoyable. My gardening wasn't enjoyable anymore because I was like, oh my God, I'm obsessed about the grass, and it's now turning into be something that I wake up in the morning thinking about. And it's so silly, but at the time it was so important to me. So I think breaking the cycle was something that I had to do. I did do, but I did it through like gritted teeth, and I did it almost like being forced to do things. And that became a bit of a repeating thing as time went on as well. But truthfully, they were the reasons why I was hiding from the big world, because I wasn't really happy within myself. So even though I was this TOWIE star or reality TV star, people didn't really know the real me because the real me hadn't really come out yet. So when I came out at the age of 29, which is quite late, life really began then. And I found very quickly love. And when I experienced the love of another person and I got to share things that I'd never shared before, grow up in a way that I'd never experienced before, share things that were totally new, life started, I understood life a little bit more. And I thought that this was the reason why I'd gone through everything I'd gone through in the years prior. It just so happened that this is my story, and it was a little bit later on down the line. It's been quite tricky, but I'm set now. This was what all these issues were. I was bullied at school because probably people could pick up I was different, and then I didn't know what I was. But then when I met this person and I fell for them, it was that eureka moment of, okay, I know what I am. And as soon as I knew what I was, I went on this morning and I said it. And that was a great relief for me because I was like, I can finally just sit there at 29, be totally transparent, explain that it wasn't an easy journey to get there. I didn't lie on The Only Way Is Essex. I'd never been with a guy before. I'd never experienced anything sexual with a man. I just genuinely didn't know who I was. But that was quite a tricky place to be on a show that was so stereotyped,
Yeah,
truthfully.
quite an incredible journey to go on in the public eye as well. I mean, again, talk about adding the pressure to oneself to do that. I mean, it requires incredible bravery.
Yeah, at the time I didn't realize. I thought, well, this is just what it was. But I definitely saw a big change for the better when I was in a relationship that I really felt the love and I felt wanted and I felt enough. And again, I keep going back to this reflective state that I'm in because I'm looking at everything right now as like a blanket. I'm trying to like dot it, trying to piece it all together. And I can see that a lot of my stuff stems from this idea that I wasn't enough. And I've tried to do things to make me feel that I am worthy. But when I naturally got the love of someone else and I felt worthy of that love, I felt so powerful. And there was definitely a window of a good 3.5 years that I actually felt I could just level out. And that was great. So amongst all the ups and the downs and the turmoil, there was a window. And that window was bliss.
Oh, well, gosh, what and you will get back there, you know. I mean, it's the fact that you've lived through it sort of speaks of the fact that it exists, right? And it's sort of something to hold on to, because
100%.
I think in the darkest days, you sort of, when you just think, oh my gosh, this is never going to get any better, you can kind of cling on to those memories. And I think memories can be so powerful sometimes. And it just shows you that when you are courageous and when you do put yourself out there, sometimes good things do happen, because I think we're so quick to always assume the worst. I mean, I had this thing this morning where I wore a different pair of trainers and I was like, oh my God. And I have a thing about, you know, I have a problem with like my leg, and if I don't wear the right trainers, then it starts to hurt. And I thought, oh my God, if I wear a different pair of trainers, my legs are definitely going to start to hurt. Instead of which I then was like, why don't you just reframe the narrative and actually think, actually, maybe this new pair of trainers is going to be even better than the last one. And actually, you're going to start to really enjoy them. I mean, that's a really trivial example, but
It's a great example, though. It's all got
you know,
context.
it's always like we always sort of think that everything's going to turn out for the worst, or that it's and I think that's just something that we have to keep reminding ourselves. Is that you catch yourself, you catch the judgment, and you actually then just say, no, this might not be what I'm going to expect it to be, or something good might happen today. And often it does. And it's amazing. And you suddenly actually think, and that's why I think people often say that doing gratitude lists are incredibly helpful, which I've started to do. And it does. You suddenly start to see the positive in people and in the universe, and how, you know, good things do happen on a daily basis. We're just, when we're in the midst of our obsessive thoughts and stuff, we just don't see them.
That's right. No, I'm with you on that. I think if you can even just take that moment to switch the narrative, or to list a couple of positives, even if it's on one hand, if you don't want to jot them down, you're still taking that moment, that precise second of your day, to switch something, or to think of something with a better outlook, or a positive outlook. And that in itself is a game changer, because you're giving yourself, you're allowing yourself that moment to actually be grateful, or to say, no, enough with the negativity. Quickly, 5 things that I'm happy about, or that are making me, that are positive in my life right now. And I think that's really important, that you can quickly get it in there like that. No, not today. And I do that a lot. That's one of my things now. When I can feel I'm not having a good one, I say, no, not today. Come on, Charlie.
Yeah. So, well, and the brain, you know, neuroplasticity is such that, you know, if we keep doing that, our brain slowly does start to reprogram itself. You know, the brain is a muscle. And like anything, if you train it in the right way, it can be incredibly frustrating to hear that when you're in the sort of midst of an episode or depression or whatever. You're just like, well, just shut up, nothing's going to change. But it's very slow, but it does, like, you get these tiny glimmers of light. And those are the things that keep us going, I think, because the expectation is that suddenly everything's going to go from sort of 0 to 100 and it's all going to be amazing. And life, sort of, for all our friends, is just this fantastic breeze. And in fact, it's just not. Like, life is about, like, weathering the ups and the downs. And I think sometimes we do have that extreme mindset where we think it's all going to be all or nothing. And it's just not really the case.
No, it's not.
So, Charlie, I want to, like, sort of get into the detail of your body dysmorphia.
Yes.
And what, so, because a lot of people with BDD tend to focus on particular body parts or areas and obsess over them. What would you say, did you have, was that a symptom of your BDD, or did it manifest in a more generalized way?
So with the fitness side of things, the gym was originally my sanctuary. It was my place of escape, and I loved it because I could be amongst people, but even though I wasn't really interacting with people, I observed, and I could see the guys in the corner doing their weights. And back then, when I was just starting in the gym, the guys were in the weight section and on the squat racks. The girls are usually on the cardio kit. And I'm so pleased to see it's changed now, because strength training is the one. But the gym was definitely a place that I started having a great relationship with. And I enjoyed what it was doing for me and the changes that it was bringing. But with the men's health thing, that was great. But because I then also had a public profile on it, and people were responding to an image, and they were so impressed. And I was impressed, to be fair. I couldn't believe what I'd done in 8 weeks, whatever it was. Bear in mind, though, it was all I did for 8 weeks. And people forgot that. You know, you could not achieve that if you're running a regular life. I wasn't. But I sensed the accolade and the ego boost that it gave me. And for the first time, I actually started feeling like, oh, I'm something. I feel good. And it was then a great foundation for me to want to continue on my fitness, getting my body even better, until it became obsessive, which it took a while to get there. But then bigorexia became quite apparent, because in my nature of things, it goes from that point of being something I enjoyed, something that was serving me in a positive way, to then something that I'm starting to get a niggle, but I'm going to keep training because I can't miss that training day. And there it starts, because if something took me out of that routine, or I couldn't train my shoulders that day, all of a sudden I felt like I'd lost the size on my shoulders, didn't want to wear that t-shirt if I was going out. And you start being very critical on yourself to the point where I'd be like, well, I'm not going out then. So the gym and that side of things was definitely the first part of that. But then I was given these opportunities to be front cover of magazines. So I was front cover of GT magazine, Attitude magazine, to name a couple. And that was all like in my underwear, in the sports gear. I was the Gay Times' fitness editor at the time. I was going all over the place, trying every fitness class under the sun, every supplement, being given everything, photo shoots every 6 weeks. So that's all I did. But I had to stay of a certain way in order to perform the way that I wanted to. The pressure was on. I was injuring myself to the point where I had to have shoulder surgery. And it was when I had the surgery and then I had to stop, because you know what it's like. You have to, Charlie, you cannot do anything for 6 weeks minimum. Then you're like, oh God. And so I got very fearful and upset about my physique, and I couldn't do my job properly. And I just became very upset and angry, and it wasn't a good thing. But I'd realized as well that I was on this machine and I couldn't really find a way out of it. Like, it wasn't enjoyable anymore, but equally I'd set the tone and I'd set the bar quite high. So I think the bigorexia was the first part of the BDD, but I thought it was because of just my career pressures, and people really do have pressures in their job. No one's void of it. And if you're being successful or whatever, it's like, you know, with the highs come a lot of responsibility. And if you're doing this for a magazine, you've got to stay that way. But when I had to stop, I had to stop. And so I had to try and rebuild a healthier relationship when I was rehabbing, rehabilitation, physio and everything. And it was a moment for me to understand that I'd been doing too much. But that was quite tricky, because then I never really feel like I got my body back after that. And when you've got to a certain place and you keep referring back to those old images, or people were responding to all of that stuff, it was quite a pill to swallow. And yeah, I lost my way with that, to be honest. And so then I carried on for a bit, and I think it wasn't much long after that that we went into the pandemic. And unfortunately, it just spiraled. It went beyond, and it went more than just my physique. It became my face. And I was just convinced that I needed to have surgery, because the one thing that I'd always had a bit of an insecurity about was my nose, from back being called Monkey with a round nose. Being Jewish, we used to always get, like, I got bullied for being Jewish, and there was always this thing about noses and Jewish people. And it was broken when I was about 18, just randomly. It was just wrong place, wrong time. And when I would do my camera stuff, and I'd really be very self-critical because I'm a perfectionist, want to look the best. I always looked at the greats. I could always see this dent. Went to see a plastic surgeon. I went to see a dermatologist, sorry, who said, see that dent in your nose, which brought it right to the forefront.
You just can't believe it, can you?
They said, we can put some filler in that. And basically, that's when the seed of the face started, because I'd gone for a facial. They saw this dent, bit of filler, refine it, lovely job. And I was like, do it, because I hate that thing. I'm always at angles. I've got my best side. If I could go to camera straight on, or if I can be smouldering in the way that I want to, then great. I haven't ever been able to do that. They put the bloody filler in, and it was a disaster. It blew. The nose went massive. It was done via a cannula. It was cheap filler, apparently. It cost me £1,000 to have it dissolved. But what did it do? It opened a floodgate like you would never, because I became obsessed. Because I walked out of that Harley Street clinic, and I just walked out thinking, what have I done? I had to cover my face and wait for it to be dissolved. But it never really went back down. So now all of a sudden, I feel like I've got a bigger nose than what I had at the beginning, because of my nature as a person. The thing that I thought it was going to fix it has made it worse. And all of this stuff was happening, Pandora, and it was I didn't know what was really going on mentally with it all. I just kept thinking I need to do little things in order to be what I think I need to be. And really at the time, there was no identification of anything. I just thought, I've set the bar quite high. I'm a perfectionist. I want to continue my life within the media game as such, because I do enjoy it when it's happening and it's good. I feel great. I feel I get to do unique things. I've always been a bit of a unique person.
Mm-hmm.
But then the nose thing just made me so like self-conscious. And that was literally the Christmas time before the pandemic hit in the new year.
Yeah,
in the
so
February
2019.
time. Yeah. And so when we all went into that crazy time, I was living on my own. I was living up here in London. I had this idea that I was going to rebuild myself and, try again. Because that's one thing about me. I give that to myself. I do try, find angles of what I want to do. Let's restart things a little bit. But during that time of being on my own, stuck to my phone, being within my own thoughts, obsessing about things, I just couldn't get this thing out of my face. Like when I kept looking in the mirror, I kept thinking, this looks awful. Like I kept taking selfies, I kept taking pictures. I started playing around with face tuning, and I saw a version of what it could look like. And then that became I was even playing around with like contouring, watching tutorials. And then I was like, I'm going to have a nose surgery. And that led me to when we first came out of that first lockdown. The first thing I did was call up a surgeon that I know had done a few of my friends from the Towie days. Go and see him. The first thing he looked at me and said, we can improve your nose, 100%. And that was music to my ears. And it was like, okay, yes, we've been in this hell for the last however many months, fed up feeling the way that I feel. This is the answer to everything. Never really liked my nose. I'm coming back stronger, bigger, better than ever with a good nose. I showed him a picture of Ben Affleck because I was obsessed with him and Colin Farrell. And I thought I could look like these guys. And that's going to be the answer because this is my insecurity. And, this is maybe why things aren't quite connecting in certain areas for me. It's stupid, but that's where my mind was at. Always looking to the tip top, the Hollywood stars or I think gay people especially, like we love the beautiful. We love we unfortunately, I think there's part of us because of we feel sometimes less than. We look to the beauty to kind of give us that sense of validation. And I went ahead and I had the surgery and it was a disaster. Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, 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 next installment.
Oh, God, I feel like I haven't shut up. Let's talk about you.
No, it's fascinating. I kind of, I want the next installment now.
Oh.
I mean, what's interesting though is that did the sort of the bodily or the bigorexia, as you refer to it, I think you can also say muscle dysmorphia. Did that slightly allay when you were going through this obsession with your nose? What was going on with the working out? Was that still ongoing, or was that sort of did that quieten when the nose was the sort of focus?
I think lockdown had its perks for me in the sense of it took the pressure off because you couldn't go to the gym and we only had what we had within our homes and we were all doing those bloody baked bean workouts. And so I had what I had within my flat. And I would every day like to exercise. You said to yourself, like, I couldn't not go a day without doing something, an hour of HIIT, whatever it was, in my living room. And then I would just put my phone on and record it and post it. And I did that every day. And it became something to keep me occupied. It was motivation. And I understood as well that I was not going to have that big pump as such because we're working with little weights and tins of beans. So it kind of worked for me in a way because it removed the pressure, but I could still do something that would help people potentially. So that did subside for sure. And then when obviously I agreed to have the nose done, that was also like, I'm going to relieve the pressure of the body because I'm going to get the nose done. I'm going to go on holiday after that. And then I'm going to maybe go to one of these boot camps or do something out in Ibiza. And I'm going to come back and there it will all start, the rebirth. This was my way of thinking.
No, well, it's really interesting. I think the way that we're wired is such that we always are looking for escape routes. It's sort of, oh, right, well, I'll sit through this discomfort knowing that actually I've got this whole plan as to how I'm going to get myself back to where I actually really want to. I mean, I know that for me, when I've gone through periods of needing to put on weight, I've sort of always thought, okay, well, I'll sit at this weight for a while, but then I know exactly how I can get back to sort of being super skinny. And it's, even though you know it's not healthy and you know it's not really the right way to go. And I think it's until you have that mental shift, which I'm experiencing now, where you're like, actually, I realize that I can't have a life by being that super skinny version of me, or
Right.
being the obsessive, the one who works out for hours and hours a day. And
Yeah.
it's not to say that one is able to get there immediately, because I'm not. The mindset hasn't fully shifted, but it's the awareness that ignites, where you can't start planning those escape routes, because you just have to, and as you said earlier, you have to slightly white knuckle it.
Yes.
Knowing, under the guidance quite often with hopefully a therapist, or I mean, to be honest with you, you do need a support network, because it is really tricky. And if you don't have an outlet to be able to vocalize that, I've got a real urge to starve myself today, or a real urge to binge, or a real urge to work out for sort of 5 hours, knowing that actually it's a slippery slope, because as soon as you start, your mind then literally is just starting to be like, oh, actually, this is quite nice again. We'll get back into that rhythm. And I think it's that crucial moment where you're like in limbo, and you're like, no, I'm going to go engage my wise mind, and I'm going to take the route that I know takes me towards recovery and a happy, fulfilled life, even though it feels worse at the moment.
Yeah, I hear you. So that I had that mentality of that thing will fix that thing, and then it's going to come back and I'm fixed. But obviously, and this is what I've been speaking about recently, and this is what I want a change with, is when I went to see that surgeon, or even when I went to see that dermatologist, I'm going into a bit of a lion's den. I've taken myself there, hands up to that. But equally, I feel like there has to be this duty of care when you walk through the door. There has to be a bit more of an understanding as to why that person's coming through the door. And when that surgeon specifically said to me, 100 showed him the picture of Ben Affleck, told that we could achieve it, take my money, and boom, let's go. I was sold a dream. Yes, I wanted him to tell me that that could be done, because it was something I wanted to be fixed, but there was never any stop. Charlie, where are we at? Or have you had an analysis with your mental health? Have you had any chats with psychotherapists? Or, where there was just nothing. It was, we can do this. This is the bish bash bosh, basically. See you in the operating theatre. And so I did it. And then obviously within the first couple of weeks of doing it, horrendous operation, I've got to be honest. Again, you kind of just blindsided, but rhinoplasties are horrendous. I could see within a couple of weeks, something's not right here. This was not looking good. And I know that swelling and the aftermath of very invasive surgery, you've got to give it time. But I remember thinking, no, like when he took the cast off, my heart sunk and I panicked. Went on YouTube, went on Google, and it was quite a common story, but my nostrils and the nose was just not aligned. It was asymmetric. So I started flagging it very quickly, but obviously I had to let it do its thing. We were allowed to wear masks, obviously, if we went out, because at the time we were still very COVID driven. And I was thankful that I could wear masks. But it was within probably 6 to 8 weeks that he even identified that this wasn't healing correct. And there started a whole other can of worms, because I hadn't factored in the risks and what would happen if it didn't go to plan. And there was no support around that. There was no tools around it. There was no one in the team of this plastic surgeon that was going to be able to help me, because once you've done something like that, there's no going back. And also, you can't do anything, because you can't touch it for at least a year, because it's too fragile. You've had a big surgery. So then I'm stuck. And that's unfortunately when the shit really hit the fan with me, because an insecurity had led me to something. I'd put all this expectation on something being the answer to everything. I'd spent a lot of money. I'd put a lot of emotional energy into it. I've obviously struggled with my self-esteem. I, by all accounts, was seen as quite an attractive guy. I sat there and I thought, what have I done? And it just, a spark went out. A spark that I just almost like surrendered, like I've blown it now. And I don't know what I'm gonna do. I mean, I've got the photos, I've got everything because I was trying to journal the situation. And yeah, I just went on a massive downward spiral. And that's when body dysmorphia, BDD, really raised its head in a sense of, oh, what is this condition? And that came to me via a therapist of mine, a friend, um, Dr. Pam Spur, who's amazing. She could see that I was in a very, very dark place, and what I was talking about and how I was feeling, and what I was sending her all the time. And that's what then led her to intervene with me to then seek more help, because she could see that I'm in a situation where it could go very, very bad, because I couldn't see a way out. And I was so embarrassed. I was so mortified. And I just kept thinking, why have I done this? What have I done? And it just stopped life. And that's unfortunately as well when my mum was, and I was living in London. I was trying to be my own person. She was like, no, you've got to come back, because I'd obviously had my struggles in the past when I was in my late teens. And I was on this, I just, yeah, I didn't, you don't want to get up in the morning. I just was like, I was praying to just be able to escape myself. I wanted to just keep waking up and like, can I not just get out of this head today and just not feel anything? I don't want to, this is not, I don't enjoy this. And then I felt so guilty for feeling those things. And I just, yeah, you know what it's like in those dark
No,
moments.
it's such an easy cage to get into. I mean, I had the same thing during lockdown. You just start to, again, going back to this thing of just existing, and just sort of you lie in bed every morning, and it was just like I had this sort of mountain to summit. And if I got to the top of it, which was like completing all my rituals and, you know, everything around this, the food and the exercise and the OCD, but it was like summiting the mountain was so boring, it was so painful, it was so monotonous, it was just this grind. And then I would get to the top of the mountain each day to only then just have to slide down while I was asleep, and to then like have to go to the top.
Start
It just
again.
literally, yeah. And
Yeah.
you do, and you start to feel just like, what's the point in going on? Like the light just kind of goes out. And I
Yeah.
think that's the critical moment when, we're very lucky in that we've both got families who scooped us up,
Yeah.
because it can be a very, very dark and lonely place, and especially if you don't have anyone there to be like, actually, no, like we've got to have a complete change. Because I think often when you get to that kind of rock bottom, and I have to say, like, to the listeners, I've had several rock bottoms. There hasn't just been one, because I think often you hear like rock bottom and you're kind of like, oh, well, I've already been at a rock bottom, or maybe I haven't. I think you can, life goes in peaks and troughs, and especially if you have a mindset where you kind of suffer from a mental health issue. But I completely relate to that, and I'm sorry, that it got to that point.
It's, look, we can sit here now and we're doing something amazing because we can talk about it, and we're talking about it from we're further on down the road, and I've acquired many tools, and it's, I'm here to tell the tale, which is great. Going back to what you said about the peaks and the troughs, we know that the troughs make us as human beings, and they are a testimony when you do get through them and you start rising again. I think it's so important that we give ourselves that credit. I've had many. I'm sure we've got many more to come. But you're right. When you get to that point where you thud the ground, which I actually don't think I'd really done, especially not in a good 15 years or something. I thudded that ground, and it was the first time I was like, no, I've blown it now. This is it, because I've just done something beyond repair. I've messed my face up, which means that when I meet people, I won't want to meet people, and I'm not going to do my career anymore, and I'm done.
So you go home.
I go home.
Back to Leigh-on-Sea.
I go back to sunny old Leigh-on-Sea, and I just recover. I took every weight off of my shoulder, apart from just spending some time with my family, being with my nephews, getting joy out of the simpler things, forgetting social media, forgetting media world, forgetting personal training, knowing that I can't exercise because I weren't for the first few months anyway. I was not allowed to because of cartilage grafts and things like that. And start looking at life a little bit differently in a more simpler term, and to try and understand what is it that I've been seeking, what is body dysmorphia, what can I do with this, where do I go from here? And that's what this whole year has been about. And I keep referring to this reflective time. It's definitely been over a year now, for sure. I'm looking at every angle, I'm piecing it together, and I'm trying to understand what the triggers are, what they have been, the trauma of the past, the rejection element that I struggle with so much, the coming out later in life that I didn't realize actually was quite damaging, to not have explored myself in a younger time, to, with the reality TV world of the comparison angle, the bigorexia that I didn't realize that I had. I just thought it was perfectionism. But again, as I'm sitting there listing it all off, already that's a positive, because I'm looking at it from a slightly different perspective now. And with having therapy and finally having the guts to talk about body dysmorphia, that was an opening of a real healing part of this story. Was I spent a good 8 months just off radar, pretty much. So then when a friend of mine who works in TV, who knew what I was going through behind the scenes, but not to what extent, she said, why don't you, when you're ready, talk about this? Because I think it could really help people. And people were wondering where I was, and my agent as well. I was still saying no to all the jobs. No one could understand where I was and what I was doing. And I thought, right, okay, I haven't spoke about this. No one knows I've had surgery or anything like that. So this is the time. And I went on Steph's Pat Lunch in October last year. And that's when I spoke about everything. And I had the Body Dysmorphia Foundation, the BDDF, who are amazing, help me. And they've been a help with me ever since. Dr. Pam, and with her contacts and team, have been incredible with me. And I've been able to use my platform in a totally different way, in a way that I've never used it before, to just be totally transparent and honest, sharing it from a male perspective, a gay male perspective, a reality TV star perspective. It's been a real cathartic experience. And so it's taken that pressure off, that everything I do now, I know that I've kind of said where I'm at and the things that I've been through. There's no expectation to be anything. I don't need to be an Adonis, because whatever. I don't need to act like I've got a great nose when I still am self-conscious of it. And, the journey continues with that, and trying to embark on, do I do the third surgery, which I've been recommended to do? I'm not there mentally to want to endure any of that again, and the risks that come with that. But what I do, in a weird way, enjoy doing now is sharing the story to potentially stop people making rushed or rash decisions when it comes to cosmetic surgery, aesthetic surgery, and to really question if their body image and things like that are affecting them and their confidence and how they socialize and interact with people, or how they see themselves. Then we need to see where you're at with that. And if it's something you're connecting with, then maybe there is an issue here that needs to be addressed. And so that's been what this whole thing's about now, hence why I'll sit here, because I felt very guilty and embarrassed for how I felt, very self-obsessed, self-absorbed, all about me. People are out there struggling, life-threatening illnesses. All that guilt has been on my shoulders. But what I realize now is I'm allowed to be feeling the way I feel. This is my story. And if it can help someone down the line, then amazing. Like, this might just make someone stop making that appointment with that plastic surgeon, or before they do that, go and maybe get some therapy. Or speaking in Parliament was an idea to say to the government, plastic surgery, aesthetic work, from fillers to Botox can lead to extremities. There needs to be a duty of care around this, because I had one thing that then has led to a much bigger thing, because I wasn't equipped for it, truthfully. I didn't know. And it was so easily done. And it can be so easily done for anyone. There needs to be more, there needs to be conditions around this, So that's what we're pushing for right now. And that's something that I'm really getting my teeth into, and it helps me.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just so moving hearing you speak. Thank you for being so open and honest, because as you say, it's the only way that the world's going to change and attitudes are going to start shifting, and it can do no, I mean, it's got to be a positive. There's no harm that can be done. And I think it takes as we said before, it takes a lot of courage, and your sentiments echo entirely the premise of this podcast. It's, if we don't talk about these things and expose ourselves, then we're never going to move forward, because I think a lot of this sort of so-called destigmatization of mental health, it's moving, but there's no way that it's got to the point where people like you and I, who are still suffering, and we're very much like still on our journeys, have actually had the space and been given or should I say, the safe space to be able to open up and to say, actually, guys, it's not a sort of, a journey where it's like, you go from A to B and then you're done. It can be a lifelong mission, and it can be something that you really do have to manage. And we hope that it gets quieter and quieter as we get more and more tools and we get more confidence and self-acceptance. But, maybe not. Maybe maybe this is why we've been put on this earth, is to try and spread this message and to try and stop other people from falling into the pitfalls that we have. And it's a challenge, but it's just amazing to hear how much energy you have, and you've got so far. I mean, to be speaking in front of Parliament, it's a big, big deal. And when you say that, it makes me think. I often look at anorexic girls in the gym, and people who are, exercise addicts, and I think there needs to be also. That's something I feel quite passionate about, as a duty of care for gyms, to be able to say that, are you struggling? Like, we offer these support services, and to signpost people towards getting some help, because it's not okay. I see every day, I see girls in the gym who, like I was, I had a stress fracture and I was on crutches, and I would go to the gym and I would hide my crutches. I would come into the gym, hide my crutches, and then I would get on the cross trainer, then I'd get on the bike and I would take off my air cast. Absolutely mad behavior, but everyone just sort of sat back and watched.
Yeah.
And I remember my mum just saying, I just can't, she couldn't stop me because I was in my 20s and I was independent, but it's really disturbing to watch that. And yet so many of the personal trainers who work at these gyms, the managers, they just they're getting their monthly rate. And as far as they're concerned, until I remember asking about it, and it's until someone actually has a heart attack or collapses, or that's the only time they can actually legally intervene. And again, that's something we should talk about, because I think one day that needs to be changed, and that needs to happen soon, because it's a support. It needs to be supportive rather than punitive, right? Because there's no point in banning someone from a gym, because I would have just gone elsewhere, or I'd have gone to the park. It's about offering a supportive system, and it's absolutely vital what you're doing. So going back to your treatment for your BDD, what does that involve? Is it CBT based or
CBT, which I'm actually very new to? That was something that Pam recommended that I try. It's trying to understand the behavioral patterns, reconditioning the brain. The one thing about me, which I think this could be quite a successful route for me, is that I am very aware. I'm not in denial about anything, and I see things for what they are. and I piece it together with quite a clear mind. And if someone can guide me a little bit to potentially think of a certain angle or understand my triggers, or just make me see things in a certain way, I usually can take it on board, and I will know if I'm resonating with it or connecting with it. A little bit what you've just said, acceptance is key with all of this. The work is always in progress, and that's vital to know. And the one thing that I've realized recently, especially in recent months, is this self-acceptance. This is who I am. This is the journey that I've been on. The things that have led to the things that have happened, I can't change. But equally, I know that for my future, I want to have more control over things. I'm not going to sit here and say I don't have BDD anymore, that I'm not going to be obsessive about certain things. That pressure is off, because it's more than likely it will come back in different ways and show itself in certain ways of my life. And I'm cool with that. It's the acceptance. And now I'm accepting, I do feel that there's a sigh of relief that I'm open to the imperfections. I'm open to the trauma that's got me here, and actually I can move on, and the future can be bright. And even though I'm going to be totally transparent, I don't feel ignited still as I sit here. I don't. It's like that lighter when you're pressing it down to try and get the spark. I definitely have that thumb on the little bit of metal that's causing that friction to spark.
Good analogy. I really like that.
Yeah, and there's that part of me that, as long as I'm doing that and we're trying to spark, then that's great. I don't need to be a full ignited flame. And that's where we're at with it. And having the support around me, and this is what we need to get more of for people. They understand that there is help out there, hence the Body Dysmorphic Disorder Foundation, a huge part of this for me, spreading what they're doing. CBT therapy, yes, it can work for people. It's out there, but people need to understand the tools and the resources that are out there. And I think that's what we've got to continue to keep doing. Time will tell, truthfully, but I'm in it to win it. And I'm just trying to use my experiences to now make something good from it. But in all of that waffle, it's the acceptance. It's the acceptance, and people around me understanding it as well. And me being able to just be myself and taking that pressure off. That's been a really good thing for me recently. So I find the more I talk about it, I live by this mantra: through sharing, we can all find that common ground. And I think that sums us up as complicated humans beautifully, because you're on your journey, I'm on mine. We have a common ground. And the producers of this podcast and your team around you, there will be a common ground in everything that we've said here today somewhere. And that connects us all. And if we can keep on that trajectory, that's an amazing thing. And that's what will spur us to keep going. So I hope that doing these things, talking in Parliament earlier this year, getting into schools, getting in earlier on in life, understanding the bullying side of things, talking about this world that we live in now, which is so image conscious, and with social media and stuff, it's trying to take the power out of things. You're in the gym, actually, why is there not a helpline? You stand at a train track and there's the Samaritans there in case you're going to jump in front of a train. People go to the gym because, well, a lot of people have got internal demons and struggles, and the relationship with themselves or their bodies might not be great. It'd be great if there was something that people could just see. There's a helpline or there's a website, or
maybe we need to get on that.
I was going to say, that's given me an idea, because it's true. I mean, I work in the gym. I see it all the time, like what you've said. So there's a lot of work to do, Pandora, but I think bit by bit, that's maybe what our purpose is. So
totally, I completely agree. And what would you say to your younger self if you could go back in time do you think anything would have made a difference when you're that young boy?
Um, with my young self, and this is something that I actually have to talk about in my actual therapy sessions, and maybe it's not for public consumption, but I obviously realize a lot of my childhood and maybe my um, lack of being able to really express myself for whatever reasons personal to me um, might have been a big part of that initial inadequacy feeling or a nervousness to be my true self. Um, so what I do, even just with my nephews now, from a gay uncle perspective, is I always go on to my sister. You give those boys the freedom to just be themselves, express themselves, do what they want to do, of in course in line, um, and make sure that they are aware that this world is full of complicated, beautiful, individual people that they're going to encounter in life, and they're one of them. And just because we're living this nice little life down in Leon Sea, which everything's quite rosy, when they're in the thick of the real world, we don't know where their lives will take them. They've got to be armored and prepared, non-judgmental, accepting, kind. Um, and remember, we live in a world which is full of incredible human beings doing all different things, and not one person's the same. So I didn't really have that. And I think that's because we're from yesteryear a little bit, late 80s, 90s. Being called gay at school was the worst thing you could be called back in my day. I'm not sure it would hold that same power now. I hope it doesn't. But anything that associated you with the plague, HIV, AIDS, that was all around us. And so probably subconsciously over the years, I totally removed myself from any association with anything. But maybe if I was a kid growing up now and I had this freedom to really have been myself, that maybe I wouldn't have struggled so much through the school years that then potentially led me to the other struggles that I had years down the line.
Mm.
But this is the journey. This is my story.
This is the journey. And to finish, and so I just want to ask, what are your bottom line behaviors now each day? I mean, or what are your kind of absolute essentials that you do on a daily basis to ground you or to make you feel good? What would you say are your top 5?
The fundamentals for me, which firstly, I've started really enjoying exercise again for the first time in 2 years. I'm doing a fitness program. It's not my own. It's someone else's that I've purchased. It's a 1-hour session 4 times a week. I'm doing it. The reason why I'm doing that is because it's a test to A, what does this program bring me? Because I've not done it before. And B, can I build a healthier relationship? My stop clock goes on. It's 1 hour. We're job done. I walk out. I've been doing that for 6 weeks. Habitually, it's working and I'm enjoying it. So that's a real positive because exercise was my thing. And I was gutted that it wasn't my thing anymore for whatever reasons I've said. So that's important for me. I need that release and I love it. So that's great. Nutrition, for me, it's so important. Like if I don't start the day on a good breakfast, weirdly, it kind of spirals. I need my porridge and I need my bits and pieces that make that porridge amazing. That really makes me happy. If I've had a good, nutritious breakfast, I feel set up for the day. I like having my water, my lemon water, and I get a little enjoyment out of just sipping that during the day. Sleep. I set myself, I do not go on my phone after, like, say, 10:30. Give myself a good window before I actually close my eyes and go to sleep. And that really helps. And with the phone and with the social medias now, in light of everything that's happened for me and the pressures that I felt with it, I just don't post if I don't want to anymore. I don't care if the algorithm's out or I'm told, well, you're not going to get that endorsement because your stats are crap. I don't care. Like, if they don't want me, they don't want me. And that in itself has been a bit of a game changer because I forgot what this was all about. Going back to the things that were meant to be quite enjoyable at the beginning have turned into like mean machines, like horrible things that have caused toxicity. And I don't want that. I want to enjoy the gym. I want to enjoy my life. I used to love social media and having a bit of a laugh with it. It all became too much. So I'm just doing the things that work for me now, and that seems to really work. And also just choose my company wisely. That's really important for me. If you don't get me, or you think, oh, Charlie, you're not going on about things again, but Charlie, you're a good-looking guy, and you're missing the point. Go away. Honestly, it's nothing personal. I've cut out some very, very important people, I'd say, in my life recently, and it's nothing personal. It really isn't. It's more that, unfortunately, for where I'm at right now, for what I'm trying to do, I just need to be around the people that let me be without questioning or triggering. And that's also been a game changer. I know that some people are upset with me, and I have to sleep on that. But when the time is right, and if they're genuinely meant for you later on down the line, this blip or this period where we're not talking, you'll understand. So
yeah, I completely resonate with that. I think acceptance, you've got to be surrounded by people who just accept you for where you're at. I was having the exact conversation with a friend earlier, and I was saying, you know, I'm slowly, I don't know whether you found this, but as you sort of progress in your journey, I'm just that voice that so gives you a bit of self-confidence to say, actually, you're not treating me in a way that I feel is fair or is kind. And if you can't accept me for where I'm at the moment, because this is what I have to do still. And if you're, every time we go out for a meal, you're going to kick up a fuss, or you're going to judge me or make some slightly snidey comment, I just don't need, I don't need that. And I think that that's taken me a long, I mean, that's taken me 20 years to do. And I think, as you said, that sense of self grows a bit, and you are able to feel that you can take up that space as a person. And like, you know, for me, it's that your self is coming out, and you're able to sit at the table, and it's not like you're not your OCD or your BDD or your eating disorder. And it's actually like, this is Charlie, this is Pandora. And we're taking out this space because we deserve to take up this space. And if you guys can't accept that, then sorry, but you're not for us at the moment.
Right. Exactly that.
And I think it's a really beautiful realization to have, actually, because it's very, very powerful one.
It's powerful. And I think when we still get our moments of doubt, or we know we're having a bit of a bad day, or we get into our own heads, you have to remember the progress and the awareness that you've made, and the decisions that you've made, and those small wins. And I think that if you can do that, it goes back to those quick fire things. When I have my little moments, and I get them on the weekly, I will address everything. Okay, well, you know, I've done X, Y, Z, and I'm good with that. So I think it all goes back to that acceptance, and that's it, really. If you accept it, then you've got the power in your hands.
Charlie, it's been such an incredible, enlightening, moving conversation. I can't thank you enough for coming.
No, thank you.
No,
Thank you so much.
and I really can't wait to sort of see what happens in the future and all the brilliant work that you're doing.
We are doing.
Exactly. We are
Remember
doing, Charlie, and with the BDD Foundation as well. It's an incredible setup. So